And welcome to another edition of DT Live. And this is a bit of an impromptu stream because we have some breaking news today, as you guys can probably tell from the show title. Antergos is no more. And this is let me mute the stream here. You guys that are hanging out in the chat, as always, gives me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the audio levels. If the audio's working, let me know. So the breaking news today, of course, is the Orco Linux project. They have announced that they're about to go ahead and stop development. Apparently the devs just don't have any more free time. I will say that this is something you could kind of see coming. Antergos has not been a well put together project, at least not in the last couple of years that I've tried to use it occasionally. We'll get into some of that. Some of you guys are actually a pretty big crowd is already hanging out in the YouTube chat, and you guys were waiting on this live stream. Again, I only gave you guys about a 15 minutes heads up that I was doing the stream. I'm surprised so many of you guys are here this early. Also, the IRC chat that's kind of active today. About 60 something of you guys already hanging out in the DistroTube IRC chat. If you're not following DistroTube over on the Freenode network on IRC, check it out. Hashtag DistroTube on the Freenode network. Really good guys that hang out there. Of course, the YouTube chat is great while I live stream. I prefer interacting with you guys in the YouTube chat because I, of course, see it on screen. Super chats are also great. Super chats, of course, help fund the channel. Super chats also make it much more likely that I'll read your question because it gets highlighted. But how do you want to interact with me after the show? Well, the IRC channel is a great place to be. Even if I'm not there, you've got a good group of people to chat about Linux and life with. And it's not just all nerds in the IRC channel. I mean, it's mostly nerds, but there's one or two cool people that do hang out over there too. So let me catch up a little bit on the YouTube chat here. So, yeah, very early on, people were asking, it looks like Tim was asking, is Antergos really dead or is it a joke? No, it's not a joke. This is not some kind of 2-month late April Fool's joke. You know, this happens. This actually happens kind of on a regular basis, and I'll discuss, some of the projects that have died along the way since I've been using Linux. So it's not the first time this happens. This is not the last time that this will happen either. CanOS was also in the chat. How you doing? Yeah, Primal Penguin, he's a Manjaro user. Manjaro is a solid choice. We're going to get into some of the choices. Those of you that are Antergos users and want to hop to a different, maybe Arch-based distro, we'll talk about some of your options because there are quite a few options out there, and I think some options are better than others, quite frankly. As somebody that has reviewed probably 100 different Arch-based Linux distributions in the past 2 years, and that's not an exaggeration, probably. I've seen pretty much every Arch-based Linux distribution known to man, and there's a few that definitely stand out from the crowd. I think a lot of them are just dead weight. They don't serve any purpose. Yeah, Spudley's in the chat. He said, I used to use Antergos for a long time. It's weird this is happening. Yeah, it is. When you love a distribution, or the community around a distribution, actually, that's really what makes it tough. If you were active on their forums or their IRC channel or anything like that, you're wondering, what's going to happen to that community? Where are you going to go from here? And Steve Skipper is with us. How you doing, Steve? David John Ham, he was an inch away from installing Antergos last week, but ended up in the Manjaro gang. I think you would have been happier on Manjaro anyway. Even if Antergos didn't cease development, Manjaro really is the better product. It has been for a while. And that's why so many people choose Manjaro over Antergos. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Antergos too, because when Antergos first came out was about the time Manjaro 2 was starting out, and they were about the same in popularity, but over time, a lot more people gravitated over to Manjaro than Antergos. Yeah, Bad Wolf is in the chat. He says, hi. How you doing, Bad Wolf? Paul, how you doing? He says, hey, DT, how are you today? I am doing just great. Just done with work today, home a little early, sitting here, got a little cup of tea. It's not black tea, unfortunately. I prefer black tea. I'm doing some green tea today. They say this stuff is healthy for you. It doesn't taste great, though, but, caffeine. One thing about the tea, though, let me change scenes here. Got my DT mug. I don't know. Yeah, it's not going to zoom in, but this is a beautiful mug. You guys have checked out my Teespring store. This is the DT mug with the quote up under the DT logo that says, "Linux should hurt a little." You guys know it's my favorite phrase. Linux should hurt a little. Anyway, I was really pleased with how this mug turned out. I wanted to share it with you guys. Another thing I should share with you guys, because not only did I get the mug delivered, but you guys know I bought the Ergo docks the other day, and I mentioned they have a little fidget toy, and that finally came. It's not going to focus. It might focus on this camera, though. The webcam has autofocus. See, it's got 6 key switches and keycaps. And it's mechanical keys. It's the same as on their keyboard. These are Kill Silver switches. I think they ship by default. So they're not clicky. What you hear, the clicky, if you can hear it over the mic, is actually the key bottoming out. Doesn't take much to activate, actually, these Kill Silver switches. I'm kind of glad I didn't go with these. Maybe a little too sensitive. But this toy, of course, is just, it sits in this little base, the stand here. It's got its own little lanyard too, if I wanted to, keep it around a finger or something. But anyway, you just sit here and fidget, at your workstation. Of course, it also would double as a way to test key switches. Because, of course, I can pop the key switches off of this just like the keyboard, change it out to something else. So, kind of a neat tool. I want to say I paid like 25, maybe $30 for the little fidget tool. They call it the Easy Docks. The Ergo Docks Easy Satellite. Comes in a really neat box. Came in a really neat case as well. Anyway, it's an interesting little toy, obviously. Not something necessary, but I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, on to the topic at hand. I'm sorry if I don't keep up with the chat, but of course, everybody is here for the big news. If you haven't already checked it out, yeah, this afternoon I was running around, got done with my work, was running around grabbing some fast food, heading home, and I was getting messages, emails. I had one guy message me over on Mastodon. If you're not following me on Mastodon, you really should. Mastodon's great. Yeah, Carmo Abram over here messaged me on Mastodon. You mentioned on your latest live stream that we need less distros based on Arch and Ubuntu because there are too many of them. That's correct. Well, here you go. One less Arch-based distro. So Antergos, and then, of course, he linked to the announcement here, which is all over the internet now. Everybody's talking about it on Reddit and Twitter. Antergos Linux project ends. So this is by Dustin, one of the main devs. Quote, when started as a summertime hobby 7 years ago, quickly grew into an awesome Linux distribution with an even more awesome community behind it. Yada, yada, yada. They've had probably 1 million downloads, over 900,000 downloads that they know of, probably more than that. It's been was at one time really popular Arch-based Linux distribution, still has quite a solid following, but the small development team behind it, they haven't really focused much on it lately, and they're tired of it. They're just ready to give up. They're going to give up on it right now where it's still kind of usable. It's open source software, so if somebody wants to take the existing project and fork it and do something with it, of course, you would be free to do that. I don't know about the name, though. You may not be able to take the Antergos name, whoever owns a, trademark with that. I don't know. But, yeah, so it's real. They're leaving. The development ends right now. Soon they will push out an update. Antergos does have its own repos. They have the Arch repos, of course, because it's 100% compatible with Arch. So you have the Arch repos and the AUR, but Antergos does add some of its own repos. And in an update very soon, those Antergos repos will go away. They'll be deleted. They'll be removed. And you'll basically be left with your Arch system. Also, the forum will go away, they say, maybe in about 3 months. They're going to leave it up for now, of course, because people still use it, still use Antergos. They want to give people time to find a new distro and migrate to something else before they just shut down the site. So the forum will eventually go away. The wiki will go away. But of course, why were you using the Antergos wiki anyway? Just use the Arch wiki. It's a better resource. So that's the big news. There was a big thread over on the R Linux subreddit here about the Antergos project ends. So currently, let's see how many comments. 154 comments at this moment. So it's a very active topic, as you can imagine. So one guy here is pondering, I wonder if the boom in distros is fading and it is slowly dropping down to just a half dozen good ones. That would be great. That's like a utopian view of the world there, but no, we don't have less distributions. I don't think this is a trend. This is just what happens. New distributions are created, old distributions die. It's a cycle. So Antergos is no more. Catch back up on some of the chat here. Yeah, Marlon was in the IRC chat. Hey, DT, I'm watching. Nice. DT mugs. Yeah, I created that mug. I don't usually, shield any of my merchandise, but this mug I created a couple of months ago, and I ordered it myself, I guess, about 3 weeks ago. It took a while to get here. But I was really impressed with really how this particular mug turned out. It looks great. Very classy. Yeah, I'd rather go Orco Linux or something. Manjaro isn't the same. Own repos and own configs, yeah. Crunchbang was a pretty nice distro. Yeah, well, I was going to get into the history of Crunchbang because that's one, a lot of you guys that love Antergos. I was one of those people that really followed Crunchbang back in the day. Loved what they did with a Debian-based distro with the OpenBox window manager, my favorite window manager. Loved all the Crunchbang scripts and the configs they did with OpenBox. And they had a really great forum, and a lot of people used the Crunchbang forums, and it was a great community. And then one day, Crunchbang died. And Crunchbang was rather popular, kind of like Antergos is, and one day it was just no more. The main dev was done, and that was it. Now the project doesn't live on, but it kind of lives on because people took the existing Crunchbang scripts and everything that made the distro what it was, and then they created forks of that distro. We got Bunsen Labs out of Crunchbang. We got Crunchbang Plus Plus out of Crunchbang. And then some people took it a little bit different direction. They decided to do a Crunchbang-like experience with Archbang. And then a Bunsen Labs-like experience with Arch Labs. So Crunchbang, in a sense, didn't die. I've mentioned this before. Open source software really can't die because the code is always there for people to take and fork it, do what they want with it. The only time open source really dies is when nobody wants anything to do with it anymore, and that's rare. Let me go back to the YouTube chat for a second. I'm not going to catch up on all the YouTube chat. I know there's a ton of people watching, and the chat is just out of control. I'll try to catch up on some of the recent comments, though. Yeah, DT, I saw the writing on the wall last year. I jumped ship to Arch. Yeah, I hate Arch to elite of the community. Well, that's a bit of a problem with the Arch community, especially the forums and especially the IRC chat. Yeah, Paul, you mean I have to buy another mug? Well, you don't have to. This is the best mug I've done, though. Just saying. Yeah, Crunchbang was very cool. Yeah, Paul Provost was saying, yeah, Crunchbang was one of the best distros of all time. And it's dead. Actually, most Linux distributions ever created, they're dead. Right, so this is not unusual. This is not like a rare event. I guess it's a rare event, one that's kind of popular. I mean, this Antergos was kind of a mainstay in the top 10 of like distro watch rankings, whatever that means. It doesn't mean much. For a while. It's kind of waned in popularity lately. Why did it wane in popularity? I mentioned the last 2 years or so, I've tried probably every Arch-based Linux distribution out there. And Antergos was easily my least favorite one. Why? It's because the installer, the Cinchi installer, was horribly broken. It's been horribly broken forever. And it's not just me that complains about this. But in my own personal experience, at least 50% of the times that I've ever tried to install Antergos in VMs on real hardware, and I've installed Antergos, or attempted to install Antergos, I don't know, at least 20 or 30 times in the last couple of years. And at least half the time, the install fails. The Cinchi installer is that bad. And that's kind of one of the hallmarks of what makes the Antergos distro unique, So they have their own installer. That Senshi installer is kind of their installer. It's kind of a net installer too. The install, even if you get it working, because you're downloading everything over the internet, it takes a while, which that's not a problem. I understand, they're trying to do something different instead of having everything on the ISO, pull it down from the web. I have no problem with that if it worked, but the installer was just a mess. That's why, really, for the last 2 years, I tell you guys, if you want an easy way to get into Arch, and most people think it comes down to Manjaro or Antergos, or it has, the last few years. And I always tell you guys, don't even consider Antergos. It's not even in the same ballpark as Manjaro. So, if you want an easy to use Arch-based Linux distribution, Manjaro is really always the right answer. How about some other options though, right? So let's discuss some other options. Because like I said, I've used so many. So if we go to distrowatch.com, we take a look, of course, at their page hit rankings. Not that these mean anything. I don't even care about the rankings because it's garbage. But if you go to search distributions and you narrow down the search to OS type Linux, because we want to get rid of BSD and Solaris and all that, and you choose based on Arch. So this will return all the Linux distributions based on Arch Linux in DistroWatch currently, which are 20 that they're tracking. I'm not going to go through some of the obscure ones that nobody's ever heard of that rank, like number 300 or whatever. Let's just do the top 10. Manjaro is, of course, the second most popular distro on DistroWatch. Not that that matters, but Manjaro is a popular Linux distribution. Ton of people use it. You guys know I used it on my main production machine for over a year until I recently switched machines and also switched distributions. What did I switch to? I switched to number 2 on the list, Orco Linux. Great Linux distribution based on Arch. These two. This is what I recommend. If you're on Antergos and you want to do a new install and move to something else, I would try Manjaro first. If for some reason Manjaro's not working for you, try Orco. But these are probably where you want to be. They have the most development, the biggest communities behind it, good forums, RC channels, just everything about it. Good documentation, actually. The Manjaro documentation is really nice. Orco Linux has a ton of video tutorials, thanks to Eric Dubois' YouTube channel. So really, these two are the right answers. If I go further down the list, Archman, I've taken a look on the channel. I wasn't terribly impressed with it. It just seemed like another Arch-based Linux distribution, but hey. Blue Star, yet another Arch-based Linux distribution. I think it's a KDE distro. Okay. Arch Labs is interesting. Arch Labs, like I said, it's kind of started life as one of those crunch bang-like distros as far as it was a open box distro, and Arch Labs, really good. So Arch Labs might be an option for you, especially if you use OpenBox, or I think they do an i3 edition too that's very popular. Arch Bang has been around forever. It was one of the very first Arch-based Linux distributions that offered a easy way to get Arch installed. So it's been around at least a decade probably, I think. Arch Bang was the first time I've heard of it and installed it. Arch Bang is very much Arch. I mean, it's the installer is like a command line installer. It's not an easy install. It's not like the Manjaro install, but it's not difficult, and it is OpenBox. It is an OpenBox distribution. So if you don't like OpenBox, Archbang's not really an option. Artix. Artix is a good option if you hate systemd. If you're one of the anti-systemd crowd, Artix is the distribution. It's the only distribution really on this list for you. So go Artix if you hate systemd. Otherwise, if you're just looking for a good Arch-based Linux distribution, Manjaro and Orco are the way to go. And trust me, Manjaro and Orco probably have an ISO with your favorite desktop environment or window manager already. Orco Linux, I think, has like 26 or 28 images now, depending on what desktop environment or what window manager you want to use. Manjaro has a ton of images as well. All the big desktop environments are supported, and they have community editions for some of the window manager editions as well. So those of you that are on Antergos, though, your installs of Antergos are not going to stop working. Antergos is a rolling release. It is 100% compatible with Arch, just like all those other Arch-based Linux distributions I just showed you. So if they go away, As long as you're connected to the Arch repos, you're still good. You're still basically on Arch. All you would need to do is just remove the Antergos repos, because I'm assuming they're going to stop working anyway, although the Antergos guys are going to take care of that for you. They're going to push out an update that will remove their repos. But if you were on an Arch-based distro that just died one day, what would you do? Well, you just remove the extra repos. Just make sure you're still connected to the standard Arch repos, and if you want to enable the AUR, and you're on Arch anyway, so just keep going. So there's no need to reinstall right now, right? Now, if you ever have a problem with your current install and want to reinstall, then obviously Antergos is not going to be an option. What do you do? Well, I just gave you a few options that you might like. All right, I'm going to head back to the chat for a second, try to keep up with some of the chat. It was kind of a crazy day. Like I said, these things kind of happen on a regular basis, but it's not every day you see a distro as big as Antergos die. So I'm checking out the IRC chat for just a second. Yeah, Antergos installer is quite a mess. Yeah, that was the biggest criticism with Antergos, was the installer was horrible. And I don't understand why they went with that Cinchi installer. When Calamares is out there and so many distros use it, you have Ubuntu's Ubiquity installer, which is great too. And then Anaconda is okay. It's not my personal favorite, but the Anaconda installer, I guess, is an option. But the Cinchi installer was definitely the worst of the bunch. It's bad. Yeah, is there an architect installer for Orco? There are a lot of different ways to install Orco Linux. So Orco is interesting because you have the standard Orco Linux image, which comes with 3 desktop environments already installed for you. Comes with XFCE and then 2 window managers, OpenBox and i3, already configured. You're ready to go. That's the standard mainline flagship edition of Orco. But then they have other variations of Orco Linux that they call Orco Linux D and Orco Linux B. Orco Linux D is a command line installer that requires you to pull down shell scripts from GitHub, edit those shell scripts to tailor to your needs, like depending on what programs you want to install or not install, you edit the install scripts, etc. So Orco Linux is one of those. It can be a very easy to use distribution if you want it to be, a very noob friendly distribution, or it can be very much a power user's distribution, depending on what you want to do. So Orco Linux kind of fills everybody's needs, really. By the way, the stream today, I hope the stream is okay for you guys today. You guys that followed my stream last night, I had some problems yesterday streaming. One of my cameras was wigging out the whole time I did that 2-hour stream yesterday, and today I was trying something different. I was trying a different encoder while streaming. I turned off the VAAPI encoder for the AMD card, and I am using the X264 encoder, the CPU encoder. Why? Normally, live streaming CPU only is going to majorly tax out a CPU. Most people can't do it. I have a Threadripper. I think the Threadripper can handle it, so that's what I'm doing today, and let me know if the stream seems okay. On my end, the camera definitely is not wigging out. You know, the camera looks good, so it might have been the VAAPI encoder that was giving me problems yesterday, because everything looks pretty good. Let me open up HTOP, though. So, if I open up HTOP, let's see CPU usage, because, of course, I have the 12-core, 24-thread Threadripper, and live streaming CPU only is extremely CPU intensive. The Threadripper is handling it like a champ. Right now there are 3 threads that are at 100% and all the rest are somewhere around 25%. Yeah. Overall CPU usage, I don't know, it's probably 30 to 35%. Yeah, that's doable right there. That's really not taxing it that much. So if you try that on a lesser CPU, all your cores are going to be at 100% and the stream is going to be complete garbage. So I'm really happy that I have that Threadripper. That Threadripper really changed my life. I know that's going to sound crazy, but that was the best investment I ever made, was upgrading the CPU. And back to the YouTube chat for a second. I'm sorry I didn't keep up with any of the YouTube chat. I know we got a ton of people here. Yeah, so what happened to Antergos? Antergos is dead. The devs have decided it's no more. This is normal. This is normal. You got to understand, they may ask for donations, support through things like Patreon or whatnot, but it's still a hobby for these guys. It's not a full-time job. And eventually, you know, you get tired of a hobby, right? Or you have other interests eventually, and you want to move on to something else. Unless you have other people willing to keep that project going forward. Like, Antergos is a very small team. There's only, you know, a couple of guys. So when they decide it's over, it's over. So most distros, actually, a lot of the, you know, garage distros out there are one-man jobs. And when that one man decides, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, that's it. You know, he can, of course, put all the code out there. If anybody else wants to take up the project, they're free to do so. You might have to change the name, but other than that, yeah, all your cores belong to us. Yeah, awesome window manager still, yeah. By the way, it looks like the stream is buffering a little bit. I do have the live preview up. Is the stream buffering for you guys? I'm kind of interested how the CPU encoding is working. I have a green in OBS. OBS shows you green, yellow, or red depending on how bad things are going. Right now, green is okay. I did see yellow and red flash up occasionally though, so yeah, no buffering, great. Yeah, so it's not buffering. Okay, seems fine. Everything is great. That's what I wanted to hear. So we may just stick with CPU encoding. Yeah. Or if I do the GPU encoding, the VA API obviously is buggy, or at least it's buggy with my current setup here. It may not like my current version of FFmpeg or OBS. So yeah, super chat here from Robert Trimble. How you doing, Robert? Good to see you again. Yeah, R.I.P. Antergos. Rest in peace. Yeah, you got me into Arch, and that's all that matters, right? Really, Antergos introduced you to Arch. That's like anybody's first distro. Actually, you're not going to stay usually on your first distro forever. You know, whatever got you into Linux, Ubuntu or Fedora or Mint or whatever, you know. The main thing is they got you in the door, you know. And then, of course, the hopping starts. You're never going to stay on the same thing. But you always have a special place in your heart for that first distro that got you in the door, right? That got you off of the Microsoft teat, right? Weaned you from that Windows experience and got you over to the dark side here. I guess the Windows experience would be the dark side. You know, we're the Jedi, we're the Force. Yeah, you got the threads. Might as well rip them. Yeah. Yeah, still using Arch. I'm using Orco Linux actually, and that's one of the reasons Garth was asking me in the YouTube chat. One of the reasons I can recommend Manjaro and Orco Linux as a good Arch-based distribution is because I've actually used them on my main production machine. I used Manjaro forever. I had multiple installs of Manjaro on my main production machine, on my laptops. I've installed Orco on my main production machine. I'm living in it right now, Orco Linux. I've installed 3 or 4 different versions of Orco Linux on my laptops. So Manjaro and Orco, they typically just work, so they're good for me. And I feel pretty good about recommending them to you guys. Obviously, mainline Arch is obviously a way to go. I don't mention mainline Arch as a way to go for you guys that are on Antergos, mainly because I assume if you installed Antergos instead of mainline Arch, you were looking for a graphical install. You were looking for something a little easier than the standard Arch install anyway. But of course, just installing mainline Arch is certainly an option. The mainline Arch install is not difficult. About 15-20 minutes and you're done. And it's a command line install, but it's not complicated. I think I've done a couple of Arch installs on video on the channel. I haven't done one lately. Maybe I should do one, you know, for 2019, an Arch install, just to do one on a live stream. You know, takes, you know, I could probably do a 1-hour live stream and do a complete Arch install, maybe with a desktop environment on camera. It's not complicated. Yeah, Robert says he's doing great. How are you doing? I am doing just lovely. Thank you, Robert, for asking. Yeah, you should shave your eyebrows too. Now, that would just be weird. If you've ever seen anybody that's had their eyebrows shaved, you know, from like a fraternity joke or something crazy, they made the girlfriend mad. Somebody without eyebrows, they look like an alien, right? They look like something from outer space. Yeah, so Acer, I guess that's how you pronounce your name, Acer. I was actually poor when I started using Linux, so I had to install Arch at the library. It made me pretty quick at installing because it was always close to closing time. That is a great story. Yes, Mitchell Valentino, one of our regulars, says Slackware teaches you about Linux. Gentoo teaches you about your computer. Yeah. Yeah, Slackware and Gentoo are great distros. Yeah, Torspedia says LearnLinux.tv recently did a series where he installed and configured Arch. Yeah, I'm subscribed to his channel. I didn't catch that, though. I actually don't get to watch too many YouTubers, though. I don't have that much free time, unfortunately. Try to catch, you know, some of the other Linuxy YouTube channels when I can. If they're live streaming, usually I'll stop in for a few minutes and say, hey. The ones that do a lot of live streaming. The ones that do everything pre-recorded, yeah, I usually don't catch much of their stuff. And back to the IRC chat for just a second. Bowie used to shave his eyebrows. David Bowie shaved his eyebrows? He was a strange guy, though, too. Loved his music, though. I love that movie. What was that movie? Labyrinth? That's an old movie. What was that, like in the late 80s, early 90s? If you guys have never seen the movie Labyrinth, great movie. With the Muppets, and had some great music too by David Bowie. He did the soundtrack, of course. David Bowie played the Goblin King in that movie. Yeah. Manjaro is too popular to go under. Nothing is too popular to go under. That's one thing you should know. I mean, we've had some really popular Linux distributions you would think would never die that have died. The most popular Linux distribution about 15 years ago was Mandrake, which then ceased to exist. Well, it became Mandriva, but Mandriva, of course, ceased to exist. And now we have Open Mandriva kind of continuing that legacy. But in a lot of ways, that distro has died 2 or 3 different times. Now it's reborn as something else. That may happen to Antergos, by the way. We mentioned the same thing happened with Crunchbang. You know, there's a lot of distros out there that have Crunchbang as part of their heritage. Yeah, I like that. So, Sir Button Smash says, the top 10 Linux deaths video upcoming. That would be interesting. Yeah, the biggest Linux distribution deaths ever. Okay. And of course, it's not just the distributions themselves dying. I mean, you have popular desktop environments that die. I mean, GNOME didn't die, but when they went from GNOME 2 to GNOME 3, that was kind of like a death in the family, right? For a lot of people. KDE moving from KDE 3 to KDE 4 was even worse in some ways. The death of Unity and Ubuntu. So many people love Unity. So many people, that's the only desktop environment they've ever known. And, you know, now all of a sudden, boom, here's GNOME 3. Yeah, nothing stays the same, you know. You got to be able to roll with the punches. Yeah, i3 will never die. Yeah, if you say so. Someone needs to make a Hannah Montana Arch-based Linux distribution now. Actually, Hannah Montana, the original Hannah Montana, was based on Ubuntu 904. 904 was, actually it wasn't Ubuntu 904. They based off Kubuntu 904. Jaunty Jackalope, I believe, was the code name for 904. I could be wrong about that. It's been a long time, the 904 versions of Ubuntu. But even back then, the interim releases were only supported 9 months. That was the only Hannah Montana that ever came out. Those repos, if you installed Hannah now, you can get it installed. It looks good. The repos are no longer active. Obviously, Canonical does not maintain Ubuntu 9.04 repos. There's no one running that particular version of Ubuntu anymore. So, really, somebody should theme Plasma 5 and the Hannah Montana theme, and really just put it on a new version of Kubuntu. Yeah, 904. I thought it was Juicy Jiggles. Yeah. Yeah, that's a little racy there. Jiggles. What's jiggling? Yeah, Cinchi was trash. That seems to be the general consensus. Is it was really the installer, and the installer was really how you knew the Antergos project was in trouble. At least for me. It's the last 2 years, that installer, everybody complained about that installer. Bugs were being reported. Anytime somebody did a review of Antergos on YouTube, half the installations just didn't work, it seemed. When you had YouTube channels like Big Daddy Linux, when they did an Antergos challenge, they review a distro every week over on the Big Daddy Linux live channel. If you're not subscribed to Big Daddy, you should. And they've done Antergos a couple of times, and it's never been good. You know, it seems like half the panel always not even able to get it installed. So, if they can't get the installer right, that should tell you something. Yeah, I wonder if there will be a void-based Antergos Manjaro kind of thing. I'm not sure what you're at. Well, void-based, I mean, the whole point of Antergos and Manjaro is to have a Arch-based distribution. Void, obviously, has its own repos and everything, so I'm not sure. And Void has a graphical installer. It's got desktop environments. I mean, Void is already kind of like Antergos and Manjaro in a lot of ways. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking there. Other than, of course, Void is famous for not using systemd. It uses the runit in its system. I will say the Void repos, though. I've played with Void a little bit. The Void repos, most everything I want to use is in the Void repos. The Void repos are really good. Where I've installed Solus on my main production machine a couple of times, and the Solus repos are a little lacking, in my opinion. So, yeah, Garth, I just want to ask if there is going to be a chat this Sunday. I gave up on the Sunday chats, the free and open chats. Typically, now I do a patrons only chat once a month as far as a Zoom chat, because I just can't commit to a once a week set time. Just the schedules I work, I don't have a time and day that I can commit to. It's the same time every week I'm going to be there. So I just gave up on that idea. It was more of a hassle than what it was worth. I'm kind of glad I did that. I will do, of course, like I said, I do a Zoom chat once a month for the patrons. Of course, you guys can watch. It'll be live on YouTube. Patrons can join me on camera on the Zoom video chat. And I haven't done one for the month of May, and May is almost over. I was actually planning on doing that this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure when, but I, of course, will post it 2 or 3 days before I actually do it. I'll give you guys at least a couple days heads up. Yeah, so with other words, that's 12C Zen 2 will kick DT, what? His Threadripper, its butt, as long, okay. I'm confused about that, Peter. But somebody wants to kick my butt and my Threadripper's butt, as long as you don't need 4 memory channels. And DT only uses 2. Oh, you're talking about my RAM. Yeah, right now I only have 2, and that's because I planned on upgrading the RAM when I got the machine. And that is a good point, though, Peter, you make. I have 32 gigs of RAM. I have 2 16 gig sticks. And the reason I did that is to save a little money up front. I wanted 64 gigs, and I plan on upgrading to 64 gigs very soon. The price of RAM is not as expensive as what it was just a few months back. It seems like the prices are starting to stabilize a bit. It's not as out of control as what it was. So, not that 32, I mean, I'm happy that I have the 32 gigs of RAM, but 64 gigs, why not? right? Nothing wrong with having a little more RAM. Let's see. Yeah, this is just IRC. It has nothing to do with Patreon. Yeah, you're right. The Patreon chat, the patrons only chat, has nothing to do with you guys in the IRC channel. That is a live stream I do once a month that people can join me on Zoom, which is a video conference call software. And I stream it live on YouTube. Yeah, some people are, yeah, I was just mentioning it about the Patreon chat. Yeah, it has nothing to do with what you guys are seeing on screen. Obviously, this is just an IRC client here. Yeah, if you are inmate, I want to say thank you. Your setup on Debian's minimal install video saved my life, bro. That's Tib007. Yeah, I made that video ages ago. I did a minimal install of Debian using the NetISO. And then did a OpenBox install on top of it. Because a lot of people ask, hey, if you have your own window manager configs like OpenBox or i3, how do you do a really minimal install on something like Debian or Ubuntu? You could have done the same thing with Ubuntu server or whatever distro you want to do. So, all right, guys. Let me catch up on the YouTube chat here for a second. Just gonna try to just read some things. Yeah, Total OS Today's in the chat. Project ends. I guess it won't sleep better tonight. And I imagine Toss is not that sad that Antergos is going away. I know he's not a fan of unstable distros like all those Arch-based distros. Total OS Today, he loves his Ubuntu Mate. I don't blame him though. Mate's a solid distro. And if it's working for you, I wouldn't wipe it out. That's why I don't hop a lot on my main production machine. If I install something and start using it and it's working, I'm not just itching to wipe it away. I typically don't blow away working installs. That's not what I do. I know a lot of people think I hop like every other day. That's not the case though. And typically I just install something and use it until I break it. Yeah, Peter. Toss, how can you not like Arch? And then he's got the little frowny face. I know, Peter. If he used Arch, he could tell everybody he uses Arch, by the way. How bloated is Orco Linux D? It is as bloated as you want it to be. Orco Linux D is the command line install version of Orco, where you pull down a bunch of shell scripts, and these shell scripts install everything for you. You open up Vim, you edit the shell scripts, you tell it what to install or not to install. So it's as bloated as you want it to be. If you don't edit the shell scripts in any way, basically you get the full Orco Linux. Same as like their main edition of Orco Linux, which has 1 million programs installed. It's quite bloated. You're going to have Chromium, Vivaldi, and Firefox all installed as browsers. You're going to have half a dozen text editors, I think. Sublime, Atom, Genie, Vim, Nano, and Mousepad. You got a bunch of text editors. So, yeah, if you want a minimal Orco Linux, you need to do the Orco Linux D install, and you need to edit the shell scripts. Yeah, Peter, yeah, the full Orco install is extremely bloated. I would agree. But to be fair, the Orco Linux distribution, of course, is created by Eric Dubois. He uses all those programs. That's why it's bloated. He actually uses 3 web browsers on his system. That's why he has all 3 installed. So basically, he created Orco Linux for himself. I mean, now, of course, it's out there for all of us to try, but that's why it's got all those extra packages. And you're wondering, why does he need so many text editors and web browsers and everything? It's because he actually uses those. All of them. I don't know how he does it, but the web browsers I can understand. Like if you do any kind of web development, of course, they maintain a website, right? The Orco Linux website. You might want to view things in the Firefox engine and then open up Vivaldi and use the Chromium engine. Like it kind of makes sense when if I was building an ISO for myself, it would probably have a lot of things in it that wouldn't make sense to somebody else using it because you wouldn't have the same kind of workflow as me. Back to the IRC chat. The IRC chat is really blowing up today. Yeah, Webnostics, longtime DT viewer, glad to join the chat. Welcome aboard, Webnostics. Good to see you. Mr. GFY says, whoop whoop. Let's see, it's like less than $5 or less a month to run a server with tmux and an IRC client or a bouncer. Yeah, I mean, there's some really affordable cloud hosting options now where as little as like $2 a month now, you can have a server. It won't be, like a beefy, powerful server, but for things like that, you need the cheapest thing going. Really, for $2 or $3 a month, yeah, you can't beat it. So, yeah, Mr. GFY says DT's channel is the only Linux channel that lets me chat. Well, you are welcome here, Mr. GFY. Always, yeah. Yeah, the glorious IRC chat. Yeah. Yeah, IRC is great. Love plain text. Plain text is the only way to chat. Yeah, Peter says he can't join IRC at the moment. He still has problems with the AMD GPU driver. And why would that prevent you from joining IRC? That's strange, Peter. Why would the driver... Well, of course, if you're using a GUI program for IRC. But there are terminal clients like what I'm using. This is IRSSI, IRSSI. WeChat is another popular option. And those are not graphical in any way. You actually don't even have to have Xorg on the system. I could run them, in a TTY. So then you don't have to worry about video drivers at all if that's a problem. And this is an interesting question here in the IRC chat here. Lenart. Is that Lenart Pottering? I wonder. He asked, DT, what do you think about having an AMD system versus an Intel NVIDIA system on Linux? So I have an all AMD system, CPU, GPU. What do I think about versus an Intel NVIDIA system on Linux? I think AMD CPUs are just fine compared to Intel CPUs. The CPU problem is not a problem. The graphics card problem, I'm going to tell you, NVIDIA is still better than AMD. Even on Linux, I know AMD drivers are open source and they're easier to install, but the NVIDIA cards with the proprietary drivers are just fantastic. You just can't beat them for the price. Now, if you're one of those people that like to run everything open source, like I'm trying to be open source, that's why I bought an AMD card and I'm running the open source drivers. Yeah, AMD makes a lot of sense, right? You're not going to run the open source drivers with NVIDIA. Don't even attempt it. It's terrible. But the NVIDIA cards, yeah, it's hard to beat them. I appreciate the super chat, Garth. Thank you, sir. Garth, you didn't leave a question, but I'm assuming you're going to ask one here in a minute in the chat. You're kind of quiet today, Garth. Yeah, the problem is that Linux does not boot with my graphics card at the moment. Okay, so you don't have a graphical environment? Yeah. Well, like I said, you could probably still just fire up IRSSI or WeChat in the shell. No, it's not a great option, but I don't know if you guys can pick that up on the mic. I've got a kitten that is living with me for a couple of weeks. He's not going to be here permanently. He's at the door whining. I don't want to let him in. He likes chewing on the wires and jumping on the desk. I don't know if you guys can hear that meowing. Well, should I let the cat in? Should I be one of those people, put the cat on screen? Yeah, use IRC on the smartphone. That's not a bad option either. Yeah, that's certainly an option. Yeah, the drivers for AMD GPU are Libre, but not the firmware blobs. Call PETA. Yeah, there's some animal cruelty going on, huh? Yeah, Peter, show the kitten at the end just for a little while. Well, I only planned on streaming, maybe an hour. Really, I just wanted to share the news about Antergos with everybody. I also wanted to do a test stream. This is kind of a test stream, even though we actually had a real topic. I wanted to try the CPU encoding here, and it seems to be working. I'm going to go back later and watch the recording. So, yeah, bring the cat, please. Yeah, yes, do it, Chris Titus and Barbara. Yeah. If I had 2 cats, I could do a switch to Linux. Yeah, kittens guaranteed 30K subs. When did you install Kitty? All right, let me get the cat. The things I do for subscribers. Yeah, this is a mess. He is very needy too. Yeah, he's purring. And he gets all up on you at night. He wants to sleep like right on your chest, get all up in your face. You know how cats do, especially young cats. But he's a very needy cat. Yeah, like he's got to be up in my lap all the time, and I would let him here in this room where I record, except I got so many wires, and most kittens, you know, they love chewing on stuff. He chews on the wires. I'm kind of worried about that. Worried about him and worried about my equipment. Yeah, great sidekick. What's the name? Oliver is the cat's name. Although, I guess if I had anything to say with it, I would have given him a more appropriate name, a free and open source kind of name. Stallman. Wouldn't that have been a great name for a cat? Yeah, more cat. Yeah, you guys on the overhead cam get a picture of his face. Okay, quit clawing me. When they're this age, the claws are so sharp in the teeth. And so rambunctious. They love to play all the time, fight. Yeah, the cat loves his daddy. Well, I do have another cat here. I've had a cat for like 10, 11 years. He's that old. I never show my real cat. Like, this one's not staying. He's just here for a few weeks. Then he'll be moving on to a different home. But my cat, I've never shown on camera. It's a black cat, kind of a large cat. Stays outside most of the time. I let him in the house occasionally, but I don't like him in this room either. Although he's not as rambunctious, being an older cat. Yeah, they are not sharp. They can't pull the claws in. Yeah. If I was a real meanie, I'd get him declawed, but that's just horrible to declaw a cat. He does need to be neutered soon, though. He's almost to that age, maybe in another month. Yeah, and it is a male. All right. Yeah, call him Stall Cat. Is that GNU or BSD Cat? That is a good question. There are multiple versions of cat. Is it a POSIX compliant cat? Yeah, and is that cat GPL2 or GPL3? Can he concat files? Well, you guys got a lot of cat jokes today. You know, right now there's people watching, like normal people, wondering what the hell are those nerds talking about? GNU cat and BSD cat. Like sometimes you guys make me cringe. You know how nerdy some of you guys are. Netcat, yeah, of course. Why didn't we think about Netcat? But, you know, Netcat, really, it's just NC is the alias on most systems. You don't actually have to type out the cat part. Yeah, the cat with the MIT license, yeah. That would be a very permissive cat. Well, at least you guys got to see the cat. All right. Let's go back to this for just a second. We've got it's nearly 300 people hanging out. I know most of these folks probably weren't here at the beginning of the stream. So, of course, what the stream was about was earlier today, the main devs of Antergos announced that the Antergos Linux project is coming to an end. Development will cease. It's kind of been coming for a while. Any of you guys that have tried to use Antergos in the last year or two know that the installer's kind of been buggy forever. It hasn't been a good experience for a lot of people trying Antergos. It seems like most people that wanted an easy way to install an Arch-based distribution kind of were all gravitating over to Manjaro anyway. So Antergos was kind of falling by the wayside, so the devs really are just stopping work on it. They've got other things they want to focus on. They really don't have time to fix the bugs and things like the Cinchi installer. They've got other things going on in life. Understandable. So Antergos is coming to an end. Those of you on Antergos, very soon the Antergos team will push out an update. That update will remove the Antergos repos from your system, the custom Antergos repos. All you will be left with is the standard Arch repositories, which is all you really need anyway. So basically, you're just going to be left with an Arch install. Your install will just keep working just fine, just like a normal Arch install or any Arch-based install. You don't have to reinstall anything. Now, of course, eventually, when your Arch install breaks or you feel like you need to reinstall something, maybe it's been a few years since you did a clean install. Yes, Antergos will no longer be an option. What are your options? There's dozens of Arch-based distributions out there. I will say most of them, to me, don't make a lot of sense. Most of them have no purpose. Most of them need to go away. And we talked about this early on in the stream. One of you guys made a comment about, a lot of these distributions. I've made this comment before, just need to go away. To be honest, I think it's good Antergos is going away. I think anybody that wants to focus on a Arch-based distribution with an easy installer, with a lot of development behind it, a big community behind it, check out either Manjaro or Orco. Those two distributions are doing good things, really good things. So, in my opinion, Antergos going away is not a bad thing. I know it's sad, when these projects die. Like I've seen many of them die in my time using desktop Linux. But again, I don't think this is something to be that sad about. This happens. All the cool stuff the Antergos team did. I mean, the code that they wrote is all open source. It's going to live on. The community behind Antergos may live on as well, depending on if somebody wants to take up the project and continue that particular distribution. Give me just a second, guys. Oh, sorry about that. I'm getting a text message. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to go here in just a second. Sorry about that, guys. I know it's not professional checking that text message. I don't get too many of them usually when I'm live streaming, so I thought it might have been important. But we've been going for about an hour, so I'm going to kill the stream in about 2 minutes at the top of the hour. Oh, yeah, this is a great question in the chat here, in the IRC chat, Mr. GFY. I see all user IPs that join or quit, don't you? Yes. Yes, they shared the public IPs here. You can see when Nitram joined is Martin at his IP address at his service provider, Ansem, everybody. It's a public IP though. And I know some people get worried about that, but they call it a public IP for a reason. I mean, it's not. Nobody's going to hack your machine because they have your public IP. There's so much more. They would have to do to really, break into your system. Obviously, having the IP kind of helps, but it's not It's not that big of a deal security-wise. Although Mr. GFY apparently disagrees. He says, shakes my head. That's horrible. Shame, freenode. Shame. Is it the IP that's a problem? I know freenode also has been causing Mr. GFY some problems because of how they treat VPN users. Yeah, wow, DT communicating with the real world. Is IRC the real world? Almost sounded like a Morpheus from the Matrix right there. Welcome to the real. The Matrix was one of the best movies ever made. Easily. The sequels are watchable. I think they did a rush job on those scripts for the sequels, though. It was okay, but they weren't like the first movie. The first movie was just fantastic. All right, yeah, some more IP talk. Yeah, so my IP is 127.0.0.1. Hack me. I don't think anybody's going to be able to use that IP for hacking you, but that's nice you put it out there. You already have hackers after you specifically just listed your public IP as dangerous. Yeah. And Robert Trimble, hashtag red-pilled. Yeah, of course the Matrix reference. Of course that's where the meme everybody loves these days, red-pilled, blue-pilled, comes from. Such a strange meme, red-pilled. Kind of goofy, in my opinion. I don't get that one. I don't get the Pepe the Frog memes all over the internet either. Maybe I'm just too old school. Yeah, Edex UI opened. Yeah, Edex UI is a terminal emulator, the fancy Hollywood touchscreen terminal emulator I did a video on, and it does share your public IP in it too. Matter of fact, a lot of you guys were concerned when I opened Edex UI on video and showed you guys like that terminal emulator sharing your IP with everybody. Yeah, guess what? Everybody in the IRC chat knows my IP too. So, you guys are that worried though, turn on a firewall, right? If you're running an Ubuntu-based distribution, you probably already have the uncomplicated firewall, UFW, installed. Enable it if it's not enabled by default. Fedora, what do they use? FireGel. It's already there by default. I don't think it's enabled by default. You have to enable it in Fedora, but yeah, just turn on a firewall. You probably should be doing that anyway. It doesn't hurt anyway, having a firewall up. Yeah, switch to Linux 10 hat time, yeah. I wonder how I would look with a 10 hat. I don't wear hats, you know. Not a hat guy. DT, have you considered opening a Brave Rewards wallet? I have not. It's the first I've ever heard of a Brave Rewards wallet. I would actually have to look into that. So, negative on that, yeah. And the cat is all up under the desk, chewing wires. If he unplugs the camera or the mic or anything, you guys know what happened. It's the cat. Yeah, DT, really? That firewall doesn't matter. What about other PC in your network? Important that you have firewall on your router before all computers. That's true too. Obviously, you're only secure as your router. Yeah, what is the history of Pepe the Frog? I have no idea, actually. Obviously, it's a recent meme. You see Pepe the Frog everywhere, but as far as where it originated, I don't know. You see it all over 4chan and, you know, goofy places like that. Chances are that's probably where it originated. If I had to guess, it's probably 4chan. Yeah, Mr. GFY, nobody's hacking him. His OS is tip-top hardened, like a mofo. Yeah, Pepe equals 4chan. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I don't go to 4chan very often. Obviously, it's not my kind of place. But that's what I was thinking. It had to be 4chan that came up with that. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kill the stream. I do want to thank all you guys. Again, a bit of an impromptu stream. I'm kind of glad I did the stream. We had some problems yesterday. I know Big Pod in the chat, he mentioned, change encoders, try, because yesterday I was trying different video formats with the camera that was causing me problems and everything else. So I'm really happy. The CPU encoding worked for an hour-long stream, no hiccups. So I'm really glad I did the stream for just testing purposes, but also I'm really glad that we got to share this news for all of you guys that didn't, if you haven't been on Reddit or Twitter or anything, any place where you typically get your open source news, many of you guys probably didn't know already about Antergos Linux, that project coming to an end. So I definitely wanted to put that out there for you guys. So, all right, guys. Well, let me get out of here. Of course, before I go, I need to thank a few people here. This show was made possible by Ansem, Chris, the other Chris, Douglas, Dylan, Jack, Leor, Philip, Rob, Robert, Tony. Those guys rock. The producers of the show, without those guys, this show would not have been possible. Also, all those people, all those names, each and every one of them, beautiful people. Wish I could give you a hug. Can't give you a hug in personal life, but maybe a virtual hug. I don't know. Of course, I don't know. Some of you guys may run BSD. I don't know. But if virtual hugs are still cool, I virtual hug all you supporters. Appreciate you guys hanging out. All right, guys. Peace.